From ghoulies and ghosties.
From ghoulies and ghosties.
And long-leggedy beasties.
And long-leggedy beasties.
And
things that go bump in the night. Good Lord! Deliver us.
Deliver us.
Well, honey, welcome to Count Drahoon Presents.
Hello. How are you?
I hope
I'm
I'm
doing
doing-
well. How are you? I'm very happy to have you on the show this evening.
Wow, you're looking kind of
Um,
scary and spooky.
Yeah, we're trying something a little different today. So I normally record my interviews via Zoom, but today we're trying out Riverside, so it makes me look a little translucent.
So
Yes,
I
you
feel
look
like
like
I
you're
should be in it.
glowing and you're spookier.
I feel like I am a little bit spookier. I feel like I should be on some psychedelic 70s horror movie or something.
Some
So-
psychedelic stuff.
Yeah,
I'm just
psychedelic
kidding.
stuff.
I know how you roll. I just watched the John Brennan interview that you did a few months ago.
So
You
Yeah,
love John. He and I are a hoot. I love him.
he
He is. I actually had him on the show a few years ago. He's a terrific guy, just a real class act. Always such an interesting man to talk to.
so
Oh, I know. Like you can
I-
talk to him for hours and then you hang up and you go, oh, shoot, I forgot to ask him this and this. And,
You really could, and he was so. What I appreciate most about him is that he is so accessible. He's always willing to talk to.
yes.
Because I've been a fan of his for a long time. Because I'd watched Joe Bob for a while, and I emailed him out of the blue. I said, "Hey, are you available for an interview?" And he's like, "Absolutely." And
Oh,
and I've
right.
said-
yeah, and he was really great about that. So
So-
He was great. I met him, when I was there shooting the season 4 premiere with John and Darcy.
was that one of your first gigs coming into the industry, or was that a bit of a ladder to
A
climb?
lot of commercials. I was doing print,
Okay.
some print. I was doing commercials. I did a couple sitcoms. I'm trying to think of the name of them, but oh gosh, why I wish I had my resume in front of me. But I did a lot of commercials, and I did some runway. I did some print, things like that. Because it was Dallas, and I was 5'6", so I was kind of limited on what I could do in the modeling world. I could do things too where you go and you point, oh, look at the nice car, which was good money. I did Fashion Week, at the market, and for certain clothing lines that were not necessarily for women that were 6 foot tall. But yeah, I just did a lot of different stuff, a variety of things. But when I first started, I started with an agency, and they were a little sketchy. I was there for maybe a month, and they started sending me out on these things, and it was all this weird pornography junk. And I'd go on the audition, and I'm like, well, something's just not right about this. It's not what I was interested in. So I switched to a different agency. I got
Mhm.
accepted at Kim Dawson, who was a big thing then, and so I started working there. And there was a couple of agents who had just recently started there. One was print, one was theatrical drama, and they really wanted to put their mark, on the industry. So they were really busting their tail. So I got fortunate there. So they really pushed me. I had that blonde hair, blue eyed girl next door, or call it California girl kind of look. And So they were able to really push me into a lot of different things and get me in a lot of doors.
Mm.
And I had a couple of that were Hollywood union jobs. So I was SAG eligible pretty quick on. But most of the movies that came into Texas were they came there because it was cheap then. It was cheap. This is
Mhm.
the early on where they were having tax breaks and things like that. And it was a right to work state, so you didn't have to pay union fees. And so they brought in a lot of films, you know. But the film roles that they were offering the local people, actors and actresses, were the scummy kind of roles, play the hooker, or play the dead girl, or, it really wasn't anything substantial. But I got on to Walker, Texas Ranger twice. Dangerous Curves. It was a detective, like 1 hour show. I was on one episode of that.
Mhm.
And I was on a couple sitcoms. So when things came in town, I usually did pretty good at getting some sort of role on there. And my friend who lived out in Hollywood, she would say, "You're a big fish in a tiny pond," because I was getting a lot of work. I did go out
Mm.
to LA and stay with her for a few weeks and auditioned out there. I got a couple callbacks, but they didn't call me back until after I'd returned to Texas. As a single parent, I didn't have another $500 for an airplane ticket to go out there. And that was the days before we had Zoom and all these things where we could have just,
Mhm.
did something, over the phone or on, a Zoom call or something like that. It was a different time. So it was a little more challenging, a lot harder. You had to actually physically be
Mhm.
present to get a role,
Right.
You had to do a screen test. Yeah, it was a little more challenging.
And so, did you do the screen test for Joe Bob? Was that in Hollywood, or were you out in Texas for
It
that?
was in Texas, so it was actually shot
Some.
in Texas. Everything was shot there in a studio. John actually lived not far from me, oddly.
Mhm.
Most of the time that I was on the show almost a decade. So part of the time I lived in Fort Worth and part of the time I lived in Dallas. And he
Mhm.
was, I think he lived in University Parks. And it wasn't that far from where I lived because I was on campus at SMU. And, um, and there was a couple, I think 2, maybe 3 studios. I think it was 2 studios we worked in
Mhm.
while we were shooting over that decade. It was a lot of fun. But I guess whoever's doing the casting for the show actually called my agent and said, "Hey, this is the kind of person we're looking for. We're looking for a Vanna White type, And she goes, "Oh, I got the girl for you." So she sent in, I think, 3, 4, 5 headshots, whatever it was back in those days. It was her standard practice, and they chose me. I met with them, and I did the hubbies. I think 2 years in a row within like 12, 13-month time frame. I did the hubby awards, and then as far as I recall, when I was talking to John, he called me up and says, "Hey, honey, guess what? You're getting fan mail. I'm thinking about putting you on the show regular, be a regular on the show." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." He's like, "Well, I think we could do some funny stuff." I'm like, "Okay." And at that point, I'd worked with him twice. I liked him. His show was goofy and funny. And I was a full-time student. I saw him twice, for me, it was just like an opportunity to not have to study that weekend. It's like, let's do it,
Mhm.
And so, he started bringing me in on the show. So I was on the one of the middle sections in between, the films, and where we did the mail call. So I would
Mm.
always come out, with the mail bag, and each time we would try something new and different and goofy and funny, and just have some fun with it.
Is there a particular episode that stands out to you that you might consider a favorite of yours?
Oh gosh, I haven't watched those things in 30-something years. So
Mhm.
to say I had a particular episode that I recall, no. Now I I remember us doing the Christmas bits. Those were a lot of fun, where I got to dress up like the Santa's elf or Santa's helper. And we always had a drunk Santa who drank and smoked cigars and silly stuff. And
Mhm.
one of those years, the guy that I was dating, he was a baseball player for Cincinnati Reds, I think. He got to be a guest on there. That was fun, having my boyfriend there, you know. Trying to think whatever cool things we did.
Well, let me ask you this: is there a particular episode that, because I do see that you attend cons, and I've seen you around on a few different podcasts here and there. Is there a particular episode that maybe fans bring up as is there a potential favorite that they remember you the most in?
I think most of the time people bring up the fact that I was mean to Joe Bob and I smacked him around. People really seem to like that, because he was so
Mhm.
rude and inappropriate, the character that he played, that John played as Joe Bob. Joe Bob was he's just an obnoxious, rude cowboy, very down to earth cowboy, skanky kind of trailer park cowboy, who was always inappropriate. And Honey Wilcox, I think, was my official character name.
Mhm.
She was kind of a uppity girl looking to level up, and Joe Bob
Mhm.
just wasn't, he wasn't quite up to snuff, I guess you'd say.
Classic, perhaps classic Texas debutante.
Well, she was classier than him, but I wouldn't say she was debutante material.
No, that's just you. You're the debutante.
Oh gosh, I wish I had been. That'd be so fun. I would have liked it. In fact, I'm trying to get my daughter to do finishing school, and she looks at me like I've lost my mind. But
Aw.
yeah, it's just not the thing anymore. But
Mhm.
no, I was just a blue collar girl. Parents were Air Force, traveled around, and so I wasn't any fancy debutante by any stretch. But compared to Joe Bob, I was, Honey Wilcox
Well, you're
was,
our
according to Joe Bob Briggs.
You're our debutante. I still hear the southern drawl. You
A little
you
bit.
could take
right. You could take the gal out of Texas, but you can't take Texas out of the gal. So I've lived in the South long enough to know.
I would have to agree with that because,
yeah.
but acting lessons will take a lot of your accent because they used to make me take a pencil, and in acting school and speak
Mm.
to you like this, where I couldn't use my tongue to teach you how to hold your tongue down
Mm.
so that you learn to get rid of your Texas drawl, flatten out your tongue.
And now they're doing away with that, I hear.
Well, now, I've noticed I've been watching a lot of commercials and stuff recently. And, I had an agent here in Indiana when I first moved here because I wanted to work, because I was a student in law school and I needed to earn some money. And so I did get an agent here, Helen Wells agency. And when they first started sending me out auditions, it was okay. I was doing all right. And then all of a sudden, within like a year, the atmosphere kind of shifted. It was like, literally, you're too attractive for this market. And they wanted people on commercials that were not attractive. They wanted unusual people, people that were, freckled skin or skinny or extra round or large noses or strange chins. I mean, it's like they were literally going for the more unusual looking people. And not,
So like me.
yeah, like you had done great.
Who would know? I could have been a model in the Indiana market.
When you come from like what, Transylvania or something, that makes you quite unique, right?
Well, it does. Well, yeah, Eastern Europe. But it's funny. I call I live here in Nashville, as you know. So I call Tennessee Tennesseevania.
So,
Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So sometimes it's a little hard to say it 5 times fast. So
Isn't there a University of Transylvania or something? Is that in Tennessee or is that in Kentucky?
I think that's in. You know what? My producer lives in Kentucky. He might be able to answer that question later.
Transylvania College or something.
I think you're. Yeah, I think you're right. But I believe it's. I want to say it's in Kentucky. It's not. Trust me, if it was in Tennesseevania, I would have checked. But
Yeah, right.
so you were on the show for you said roughly 10 years.
Yeah, 88, 9 until I moved to Europe. I think it was about 97. So 8.5, 9 years,
Mhm.
roughly.
So do you think that being the male girl on the show did it open up a lot of opportunities for you down the road?
Not for as far as my acting career in the 80s and 90s.
Mhm.
And this isn't to say anything mean or anything, but Joe Bob Briggs was on late night, Friday or Saturday night. The people that were typically watching then were people like who would let their kids stay up late and watch a movie, or they didn't have much of a social life, or they were incarcerated. So a lot of my fans were incarcerated back in those days.
Mhm.
It was cable.
Or teenage boys?
Teenage boys, they're sneaking around watching shows their parents don't really want them to watch. Because even still in those days, there was one, maybe 2 TVs in the house. I mean, this is the late 80s, early 90s. There weren't like 9 flat screen TVs in somebody's house, and there wasn't your phone where you could download stuff off of YouTube or whatever. And so a lot of people had to wait till their parents went to bed. And then the teenagers would stay up. And then there's plenty of people who have come up to me and go, oh, me and my grandma used to watch this together. Me and my dad used to watch this together. And my dad would have a big crush on you. Or, guys would say, oh, I was 10 and I was in love, So it was people who didn't really get out. Because 80s and 90s, like I wasn't watching. I was on the show, but I wasn't sitting around watching it. I was in a nightclub dancing. It was the disco time frame. We would leave the house by 7 or 8 o'clock, be out to dinner. 10 o'clock, we'd hit the nightclubs. We'd be dancing till 2 or 3 in the morning, sometimes later. Then you go grab breakfast and come home. I had never seen myself on TV, ever.
Now that you talk about dancing at the discotheque, I'm glad that I have a translucent background today because it's perfect. I don't care what anyone says. Disco never dies.
No, I don't think so. I'll go out dancing disco anytime. But the times were different. So, people that were staying home on a Friday and Saturday night were people that were often really shy, or, parents with kids, or kids, because adults, we were out at the bars. We were in the bars, we were in the restaurants, we were on dates, we were out in the atmosphere making human connections. We weren't sitting in front of TVs. But the only time I ever watched something at night on a Friday or Saturday night was literally if I had, a friend who said, oh, let's just sit around and, have a glass of wine and chill and chat or something, which was very rare. It's just different times. And the people who watched the show were very different than the audience today. The demographics is very different. Yeah.
So, post Joe Bob, because you sort of intimated it a little bit. So, while you were the male girl, you were, I guess one could say that you were using the job as the male girl to sort of put yourself through college. But
well, it was one of the things. I mean, I had student loans coming out of the, wazoo, but John and I only got together to, shoot the drive-in about every 8 to 12 weeks, on average every 10 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I would get a call from production and they would say, okay, honey, we're going to be in town shooting this week. Because at one point, there were people just kind of coming everywhere. They were just organizing it. And at some point, John was even traveling in California. I think he moved or something for a while. He left Dallas and moved, and then New York
Well, he
and all
moved
this
to New
other
York
stuff.
City, did he?
I think he
I
went to
heard that.
California first.
Oh, he did. Okay, I didn't know that he lived
Yeah.
out there. Okay.
And then I think that's how he got on the stand in the movie, the part in the stand, and he did some other
That makes
things.
sense.
So he did a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
But he had connections out there. He was even on like Johnny Carson or something. I mean, he's a lot bigger than people really realize. A lot of people just know him as playing Joe Bob, but him as a journalist who was a film critic and doing one-man
Mhm.
shows around way before he ever had the drive-in.
Well, I remember his appearance on the Johnny Carson show because he had. Well, I remember seeing clips from that, but also he talked about that because that was a big deal for him because his father was a huge Johnny Carson fan. So the fact that he got on the Carson show, but I believe that if I have the story correctly, I think he said that his father had passed on before he had the chance to actually get on the Carson show.
It was a bit.
So
It
sad.
was a
But
little
I'm sure he was
bittersweet.
up in heavens watching.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So, but after the Joe Bob show, well, actually, one quick follow up about that because I'm intrigued. So you would shoot. You said you would shoot the show.
Every 10 weeks, about, yeah.
Right, every 10 weeks or so. So like, and if this is too personal of a question, you don't have to answer it. That's fine. But like, were you able to have a sort of, a personal relationship with Joe Bob, off screen?
Well, not really. I mean, he had his own life. I had my own life. I was a single mom in college, and he was an actor with his own show, and he was a writer, and he was writing books, and he was writing articles, I think, for like the Dallas Morning News or Dallas Star, whatever the heck it was called back in those days. I mean, he was one and I was another. We just merged together about every 10 weeks throughout the year. I would literally get a call saying, "Hey, we're shooting this weekend. Are you available?" And I would make myself available. If I knew ahead of time, I would study extra, get all my homework done, because on Friday nights at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, I would get a knock at the door, and it would be a runner who would drop off a packet, an envelope full of scripts, and there'd be about 10 sets of scripts in there, and I would read through them till about 2 or 3 in the morning, and then I'd sleep like 2 hours, and I'd wake up at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and I would take a shower, and I had to be at hair and makeup because I'd have to dry my hair, put them up in rollers, and get to the set by, whatever, 8, 9, no, it's usually
Whatever
really
call
about
time
7,
was.
about 7 in the morning, something like that. And then we would work till midnight. We'd work all day Saturday. And we would just do episode after episode, skit all day long, and then sleep a little bit and come back the next morning and do the same thing again. And it was a lot of hurry up and wait. So I'd get there at the crack of dawn. They'd get me all dolled up and up in this and up in that and this hair out to here. And then it may be 3 hours before it'd be my turn. Or there were times when he would say, "Oh, let's go ahead and break for lunch." And we'd all eat. And I'd have to be super careful not to get my lips messed up, or
Right.
get anything on my clothes. And then afterwards, we would just, bang, 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 bang them out. I would go on the set. We would practice a few times, try a couple different things, shoot it. Then I'd run back into wardrobe, and they would change me. And then I'd run back into hair and makeup, and they would do the new hairdo and add some makeup. And then I'd run out there and do it again. And this went on all day long. So we'd do it all day Saturday and all day Sunday, and then I'd leave there Sunday night feeling like I'd been through the ringer, and I'd drive to pick up my daughter because she'd have school the next morning. And by the time I got home, got her to bed, and me got to bed, it'd be midnight, and I had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get her ready and off to school and get myself to school. So it was, a lot of juggling.
So on the show, because I remember doing my homework, listening to a few episodes of your own show on YouTube, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But you said that you watched a lot of movies with your grandmother, particularly like the old school monster movies. So, I guess my question is, when you were doing Joe Bob's Drive-In, were there any? I guess did you have some familiarity with some of the movies that he was showing on the show?
Well, here's the crazy thing. I wouldn't even know what movies they are until I'd see them in the script. So I'd be
Okay.
reading the script and it would say, okay, honeys, they're going to do the outro and then they're going to do they're going to do the intro and then honey's going to come in and John is going to talk about XYZ. And it would just be a portion of the movie, like something that just happened and maybe a sentence or two about something that's going to happen. And then it would be, oh, and here's the male girl. And there would be a whole male girl skit. So a lot of
Okay.
times I would see the title of the movie and on the front page, but like
Mhm.
maybe I'd seen it, maybe I hadn't. And sometimes we had guests, like famous guests from movies, and a lot of time I didn't even get to meet them because they would show
Oh,
up.
okay.
They would get them organized and get them in there, and I would be running lines with somebody. Somebody's fixing my hair, someone's changing my costumes, whatever. And then by the time I'd come out, they'd already shot their episode and they were gone out the door. It was a production. It was a movie set, totally focused and organized on just getting things done. It wasn't like a party. It wasn't like, hey, we're hanging out. Now, lunchtime was nice and we got a chance to kind of visit with everybody, and get to know people a little bit. But because we sat around for an hour, it's almost always Mexican. And so we'd sit around and eat Mexican food. It was catered. And sometimes it was barbecue. But there was that typical kind of thing. And we'd sit down and chat a little bit. And then as soon as someone said, all right, back to work, boom, everybody was like super zoned in and focused. It wasn't like a hangout. And same when I came, when I went to New Jersey to do the season 4 premiere, it was scheduled. Boom, 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 boom. Nobody was hanging out and partying. I saw John literally. I was there 3 days, and I saw him other than on the set, I saw him maybe for about a minute.
So you are a licensed lawyer or attorney or whatever the verbiage would.
Attorney, registered mediator, divorce coach, and working on another license, which I will save for later, so I don't jinx it.
Okay, fair enough. So you did that. I guess did you get into law school immediately after the show? The show was canceled.
Well, I
ended its
left
run?
the show right before. Well, it was canceled once while I was on the show, but we just switched cable channels.
Right.
So there was a lot of really great skits about it being over and John saying, oh, you got your last chance to date me, blah, blah, blah. So we had some real fun with that. But then another channel picked him up immediately. So we were on Monstervision, and we were on the movie channel or something like that. But anyway, the movie channel, my mind's losing my mind here.
Well, it was the movie channel first and then Monster.
And then Monstervision, TNT. So, right, I graduated cum laude from SMU in 97, and I was going to Europe for a year because I was studying for the LSAT. And the person I was dating at the time, who was also appeared on Joe Bob Briggs Drive-In, we went to Europe for a year, to Switzerland, and then I got accepted to a college in London. So I got my master's in international relations and diplomacy there. Then I applied to law school and got accepted to several different law schools and settled on Indiana and moved here. And the entire time I tried to stay in contact with John. I wrote him and we talked about the show. But when I left, I said, hey, it's really not that expensive for a ticket. You can fly me there and I can stay with friends or family or something and I can still do the show. But he said it wasn't in the budget. And then they brought on Rio and was it Rusty or something like that? So they tried 2 other girls during, because I think they stayed on air 1 or 2 more years after I left. And they tried 2 different girls. There was mixed feelings. Some fans loved it, some hated it. You know how that goes. And then they got canceled for whatever reason. I don't know if it had anything to do with me leaving or if it just had anything, the show just wasn't as popular for whatever reason. I have no clue. But it did get canceled. And I was in contact with John many times, and I saw him, and talked to him when I got back. And I even talked to him then about, hey, let's start it up again. He was in New York, I think, that time. I was in Indiana. I said, there's so many good studios between here and there. Let's do it. And he was like, oh, no one will like it. It's terrible. People are not, it's too politically incorrect and all this. But then he got asked to the Horror Hound convention. I think it was 2009. And the first thing he did was call me up, honey, oh my God, I'm going to be in a convention. You have to come. I'm like, okay. Because it was like an hour from me, So they got me a room and I went and stayed and did the convention with him 2009 and 2010. We got to really hang out and bond some more then because we really hadn't seen each other in a long time and do some fun stuff and hang out over the weekend. And then he came actually to the town I live and emceed a film festival, which was a lot of fun. So I got to see him then. And we were still talking about bringing the show back. And he was kind of, maybe no.
We talked about what you did, in terms of your law profession, but also you're back. You're on YouTube. You have your own show called Perpetual Learning. So
yeah, the funny thing is I was trying to do that as a part of my business professional stuff, right? It was going to be perpetual learning. It was going to have people on that are in business for themselves and talk about how they got to where they are, their dream, and tips on how to do something. Because there's a lot of young people out there who say, "Oh, I wish I could be a horror host." So I had a horror host on saying, "Talk about how you became a horror host. How can someone else become a horror host?"
Well, by the way,
well, you've had you've had a couple of horror hosts on because I managed to catch on Gore Duvall, but also Duke Ralston.
Yep.
The Grim Reaper.
Yep. He's been
a
on
friend of
twice.
mine,
They both,
so-
I think, been on
Oh,
twice.
it's okay.
Yeah, I think
I didn't
so.
know.
I saw the more recent one that you had with him.
Duke's been on twice
Okay.
for sure. One in costume and one not, because he's got a whole new cast now.
That in mind, with this show that you have on YouTube, where do we go from here?
I don't really
do you
know and
have more
care.
plans?
I know that sounds really
Okay.
sad at this point because when I had fans reaching out to me and saying, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you're back. I'm so glad they found you. Please, please, please do some more work." I even told my daughter, I said, "What do you think, honey? Is this something that mommy should do? Something a lawyer would do? Put my reputation on the line?" And she's like, "Mommy, it's just acting. It's just fun. You should do it if you want." And I said, "Okay, if my fans want this, I'll do it." Okay, because that's the kind of person I am. I love helping others and being there for helping others. And if there were people out there who said, it means a lot to me if I could meet you, I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll be there for you. And so I did get invited to some conventions. I got invited to some podcasts and a lot of different things. And I have a script that I wrote 10 years ago. So I did start shopping that about getting that produced and things like that. But like I said, this is a very strange time in industry right now. People are like, yep, we want you. We're doing this. We're paying you that, blah, 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 blah. And then they ghost you. And it's really sad because there's a lot of fans out there that would love the opportunity to see me work again. And I would be happy to do that. But I'm at this point now after 3 years since I've been on the show where I'm, it's like quit playing games with me. Either you want me on
Mhm.
something or you don't. And if you do,
Mhm.
be sincere, be real. I'll show up. I'll do a great job. I'll support you. But don't waste my time with just foo-foo nonsense, because I have people that have real severe situations going on. This is not just, woo, look at me, it's like there's real
Mhm.
things in my life.
Well, on that note, for sincerity purposes, where can we go to check out what you're doing and to just keep watching and see what's going on in the world of honey?
Well, my friend Brian isn't helping me with the Facebook and Twitter stuff, so there's not a whole lot going on out there. And like I said, I'm not very techy. And,
Mhm.
when I'm helping a woman get out of a battered relationship and trying to find, her life back and trying to be there for her, or trying to help my daughter with school and homework, or mowing the
Mhm.
lawn, or, whatever it is I'm doing. So I have my Facebook page, the Honey page. Um, there's some Twitter. What's the other ones? I forget. The other ones out there. I never
It's
post anything. Instagram.
Instagram and
I don't post anything
X and
because it was crazy town. But I get asked to conventions. When I do, I post it on my Facebook, my Honey page. Um,
Mhm.
but everybody's complaining right now about how poorly the conventions are doing. There's so many of them. There used to be one or two a year in your state. Now there's, dozens. And
Mhm.
people just can't afford to spend $50, $100 a day for a ticket, and hotels and travel expenses every weekend.
Mhm.
And so people that are putting on the conventions, they're reaching out to me. And then when I give them my basic, which is I try to do it as little as possible, just cover my costs to get there and back, they act like it's $1 million. So I think the
Mhm.
economy is just in a really bad place.
Mhm.
Hopefully it turns around,
Mhm.
because so many people want to get out and enjoy and, meet their fans. I mean, meet their superheroes and their
Sure.
stars and, the people they love. So we hope that things improve.
Definitely, and you are our superhero, and I'm not just saying that. It's been a real pleasure to have you on, honey. It's
Well, thank
I
you.
know.
an honor to finally meet you face to face. Been a big fan of yours for a long time, and whatever happens from this point on, whether you decide to stick with the YouTube show long term, or
Well, I'd love to
Um,
have you
you
on. I
know,
told you that I would. I've been
I
talking to
give
Bronson. We will probably
give
shoot 6
mhm.
to 12 more by the end of the year. But I got to get these
Well,
tests behind me first.
sure, no, absolutely, I understand. As a vampire,
Yes, darling.
lawyers
Here,
are sort of
take me. Take
lawyers are
me.
sort of
lawyers are subspecies of us vamps,
Yeah,
so
we know how to
I
suck the
totally
blood out of people too, don't we? Ah.
so
I totally understand that you got quite a task ahead of you in terms of that. So, but whenever you'd like to have me on, just let me know.
I
absolutely
appreciate
I'll
you
be
so
there.
much for reaching out to me and giving me
Of
this
course.
opportunity and forum to chat with you. I really appreciate it. It's great. And
Of course, and
hopefully
you
we can get you on, and hopefully I'll get some conventions going again. But if not, nothing I can do about it. I'm just going to keep on rolling.
sure.
Well, we'll always stay in touch. I admire you so much, and I thank you so much for your time. And thank you all for watching out there on the Kings of Horror channel and for Count Drahoon Presents. This has been a segment of Interviewed by a Vampire. That's all the time I have this evening, but be sure to join me next time, whether that be on Kings of Horror, probably on the chopping block somewhere, or on my YouTube channel, Count Drahoon Presents. Until then, as far as things go, and things go bump in the night, there are such things.
Ooh, that looks really neat. It's all
Ooh.
translucent.
From ghoulies and ghosties.
From ghoulies and ghosties.
and long-leggedy beasties.
And
and
long-legged
long-legged
beasties.
beasties.
And things that go bump in the night. Good Lord! Deliver us.